Tentacion, left side, and that's gone!
And J Doctor, a home run!
We've got a no-hitter!
Welcome to the Pro Baseball Experience.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone from the world of the PBE. I am your host, Lord Parkwad. Joined with me is one of the co-hosts here, Gumland, who will be assisting me with the majors portion of this video. Later on, DoubleDub decided he didn't want to be a part of this anymore and said, piss off to us. So joining us is going to be Zodiac later. But this video here is going to be a recap of the off-season going into season 40. So we're going to review the off-season tournaments, which is the WBC and the Tahini, and then go over what we should be expecting for both the majors and minors teams and what kind of moves happen in the off-season for them. But like I said, as that off-season tournament starts, our first one here is going to be the WBC. First time we've done it in a few seasons here, but winning the WBC was Mexico. So congratulations to Mexico. Unfortunately, my team Canada kind of fell on their face as soon as the playoffs happened. But the biggest upset really too is South Korea getting all the way to the finals to face Mexico there. And that was a very exciting tournament for the first time I've seen it. But the second tournament every season always, the Tahini. How did the Tahini go this year so far, Gumland?
The Tahini, it was very exciting as usual. There weren't a ton of upsets in terms of, higher seeds and lower seeds beating each other. Death Valley Scorpions did win as the fourth seed for the third time in the history of the Tahini Classic. Interestingly, we had these Swift seeds beating the Voyagers in the quarterfinals, which is one of the very few times, if not the only time, that a minors team has beaten a majors team. They unfortunately didn't make it all the way to the finals, but it was an exciting ride for them nonetheless.
Yeah, and it's not even like they beat a bottom of the barrel team. It's like they, as a Voyager, that was a team that got to the conference championship. So, yeah, good job on SCSS for sure. They did the minors proud. But now, moving on here, we are going to do the Legends Conference. I'm going to go over their kind of how their offseason went, the additions and subtraction they have. Starting off here with the Vancouver Vandals. Biggest really addition they've had is getting a free agent, John Garfield, going, as they did bring in a few. Biggest subtraction of the season, though, however, was losing Garrett Scudder, sending him off, but getting maybe not as much as one would have hoped for such a high TPE player, but DVS will get him on a one-year rental deal. And then next up here, we have San Antonio. Not much going on this offseason, besides they did re-sign a league-high 7 players, so congratulations to them on, retaining that core. Bringing up Luigi Lanikai and, unfortunately, Sneaky Snack retiring. Next up here, we're going to move on to the Maui Makos, which their biggest thing of the season was definitely at the trade here with Seattle getting Hasu Karu, sending over Jeff Windsor and a couple other picks here and there, but that really is what kind of led the Maui offseason, including calling up a few people, including my battery mate in Florida, Jeff Lewis. And then lastly, for the western side of the Legend is going to be Boise. Not much really going on. Unfortunately, they did lose Jordan Beecham Reyes in a trade, but they are calling up starting pitcher Geronimo Ovechkin to be in their bullpen, as long as re-signing 4 of their players. All right, now heading over to the East, we're going to start it off with the Providence Crabs. Not really much going on. No re-signs, anything here, but also didn't lose anybody. But they did add in 6 players led by a real name, and including 4 call-ups. So getting that farm system going for Providence. Next up here is going to be OBX, the folks that really seem to be starting their dynasty for sure. But not a very busy offseason for them, as they didn't lose anybody, they did re-sign somebody, and they did call up one of their bigger prospect in Beckett Brooks. And now moving on to my New York Voyagers, we did have a pretty busy offseason led by the trade of Dusty Stradley going to Cancun, and in return, we got James Dion amongst other picks thrown in there, as well as calling up a few folks and a few signings and a retirement. Now, going on finally here in the Legends Conference is the Buffalo Surge, who did not really have too much going on. They did call up De'Aaron Taylor, one of their prospects, and re-sign 5 players, but no other additions and subtractions for them this offseason. And now, moving on next here, we have the Champions. So, how did things go over there?
So we're going to start with the Champions East with the lunar-based Space Rangers. They didn't have too many moves going on this offseason. They re-signed 4 other players, but they didn't make many changes besides that. So they're, perhaps biding their time, waiting for some of their prospects to develop a bit more, etc., etc. But they're happy with their players for now. Moving on to Nashville Stars. Our biggest addition would be Jordan Beauchamp-Reyes, an outfielder who got traded from Boise. They also traded away Micah Williams to Cancun, also an outfielder. They re-signed a couple players, had a couple call-ups, one retirement. Quite a few changes for them. Next up is the Detroit Demons. The only addition for them was Peter Ness, a starting pitcher who is a free agent that they signed. They also re-signed 2 of their players. For the Indianapolis Apex, they had Beta Chapler, a relief pitcher, free agent signing, as well as Parker Ness, another free agent signing, a few call-ups, and 2 of their players retired, 1 re-signed player. Over in Death Valley, the biggest addition was Garrett Scudder, starting pitcher traded from Vancouver. They also called up a couple of their players, Crash Jackson, another pitcher, for example, and they also re-signed a lot of their players, 5 total. Moving on to the Toros, they had a lot of moves, a lot of additions, not too many subtractions, but you can see there that's 6 additions. Yeah, 6. They had Dusty Stradley, an outfielder that they got from New York, as well as Micah Williams that they got from Nashville. They did have to trade away James Dion, a shortstop, to New York, which was in that trade for Dusty. But yeah, a lot of movement for the Toros this offseason. For the New Orleans Rougarous, there was not too much, a lot of re-signings of their core players. A couple of free agent signings, Haagen-Dazs and Oil Can, who are both corner infielders. They also had W.R. Wolf retire. And lastly, for the champions, we had the Seattle Sea Serpents, who traded for Jeff Windsor, who in exchange they sent Hatsu Karu to Maui. They had a couple call-ups as well as a couple retirements. No re-signings for them this offseason. And that should be everything for the champions side of things.
All right, and thank you, Gumland, for that. We are going to now head it on over to a commercial break before we go down into the minors. I will see you guys there in a second.
We've all been there. You've got way too much money, but no stranger has offered you a mystical amulet that grants you the power of Zeus or the wisdom of Athena. Hi, I'm the CEO of Mythological Mystical Amulets, and I'm here with a one-time offer to purchase, at great expense, an ancient and magical artifact that will grant you everything that makes your favorite Greek god or goddess special. You provide the money, and I don't provide a name, because then I wouldn't be a stranger. Make your dreams come true. Call the number on your screen to become a deity today. Mythological Mystical Amulets is not registered in any state or province, will not bow down or subjugate itself to the laws of mere mortals. If you are unhappy with your purchase, do not voice your displeasure, or you'll be smote where you stand.
All right, and welcome back, folks. As I said earlier, this is going to be the minor section. Joining me is going to be Zodiac, the GM of the Amarillo Dillos. Thank you, Zodiac. Appreciate it. All right, let's kick it off here with the east side of the minors, where my Florida Flamingos reside. Starting it off here, they're unfortunately one of the teams that did lose a lot of folks this season, including some big losses and losing Randy Fastrack in a trade to Puerto Rico as he became one of their GMs, as well as losing Lanikai and Daly to call-ups. But they did get some pretty big rookies in this year's draft in Theo Allard and Ruggsy. Now, moving on to my Florida Flamingos, we did have a lot of additions this season. I would say more so probably than others. We did get 2 pen arms from trades, which is nice. We did get 5 draftees this season out of a class of 25, led by our first-round pick, Alikh. We did lose 4 players to call-ups, unfortunately, though, led by Crash Jackson, the starting pitcher, and Jeff Lewis, our shortstop. Louisville, though, on the other hand, even though they may not have lost as much as quantity-wise at the other. They did have the largest amount of WAR lost split between the 3 players of Branville Ostman, De'Aaron Taylor, and Tony Yeboah. They did, however, get 2 rather high-end draft picks led by their first-round pick, Nakamura. Puerto Rico, on the other hand, is one of the kind of interesting off seasons this season, as they did have 2 of their active players get called up, led by Bailey Jones. However, they did get their new GM in Randy Fastrack from Chicago, and had the number 1 overall pick, drafting Fenrir Lycan. Now heading over to the State College Swifties, huge team, however, very bad offseason. Terrible offseason, losing not only a perpetual Cy Young candidate in Stun Gun, but also really kind of swinging and missing on their only draft pick this season, which was the starting pitcher by the name of Tiny Chef. And I mean, that's really kind of rough. But I mean, that's all we have for the East. What's about the West? What do they got over there, Zodiac?
For the West, I'll be going in alphabetical order, which means I get to talk about my Amarillo Armadillos first. Few call-ups, but the biggest loss was starting pitcher Johnny Patey V2, who totaled about 3.6 R WAR and finished 3rd in pitcher of the year voting. In order to sort of rectify that, the Armadillos went for a shortstop in the draft, Walker Wallace, and they're aiming to cover the 6.5 WAR they lost from their call-ups through development and their new draftees. Anchorage was very light on call-ups, only losing starting pitcher Dolores Clifton, and with their first selection, they took a starting pitcher to replace them in Franklin Judge Cruiser. So look for them to be on the come-up this season. Bruce City lost a couple of key hitters, one of them being left fielder Doggin Eminem, who had 3.1 WAR, 135 OPS plus, and swept the awards for left field. In order to cover the 6.4 total WAR they lost, their first selection was shortstop Xander Azza. California lost their top base stealer and the minor league's top base stealer in Nate Nitro, who, with 3.7 WAR, stole 72 bases with 84.7% efficiency. Their first selection and only selection was relief pitcher Indiana Paulus. So hopefully they will be able to develop as much as Indiana Paulus is able to come relieve their bullpen. Kansas City took the hardest losses in call-ups, losing a total of 8.7 WAR. It was hard to pick just one impactful loss from there, but one notable loss was second base Lauren Jackson, who had 4.0 WAR this season and combines for 11.9 WAR over the previous 3 seasons and a lot of team awards. Their first selection to try and claw back some of that WAR was right fielder Webster Rochka. And that'll do it for the Minor League West. Back to you, Parquad.
Thank you, Zodiac. I appreciate that. And that will be our Season 40 preseason recap, getting you guys up and ready for this upcoming season. I think it's going to be another great one, as is every season. But I appreciate you all hanging out and listening to us, and I hope you enjoy Season 40 and the pro baseball experience. Thank you, and have a good night.